With the release of Larma as the new big Dendro support, you might be wondering if there's any reason at all to still pull Nahida. So here's a quick video to see what teams you should and shouldn't pull her for. Alright, so as we know, Larma is a dedicated support for Bloom reactions. Since Larma doesn't do anything for Quicken, Nahida is still better than her in Aggravate and Spirit teams. However, pure Aggravate and Spirit teams are not optimal for any DPS in the game whatsoever. It's just always better to use Quickbloom. Thus, pure Quicken teams are not really a good reason to pull Nahida, despite her being better than Larma there. Thus, that puts Nahida in competition with Larma for almost all her teams, since Nahida is meant for Dendro reaction teams, and all the good ones are Bloom-based. So for those Bloom teams, we can instantly write off Burgeon. Burgeon is just not a good reaction, and it's not advisable to pull anyone for it. The problem with Burgeon is, if you have a burning aura on the enemy, you have to vaporize away the pyro before Hydro can interact with the Dendro for Bloom, resulting in getting very low Bloom counts compared to what Hyperbloom teams get. So just put the Hyperbloom in the bag. And for Hyperbloom, as far as Electro DPS focused Hyperbloom teams go, such as Sino, Sethos, or Raiden teams, pull a Larma, not Nahida. Larma's buffs are simply way larger than Nahida's for Bloom reactions, and there's no reason to go double Dendro using Nahida and Larma together here, as it's just way better to go double Electro with a Nefer or double Hydro with Yelan. So the only justifiable reason to pull Nahida here is if your Larma is going to be taken by another team, and you still want to be able to use these Hyperbloom teams, then in that case, yeah, you might want to get Nahida. For a Dendro Quickbloom DPS like Alhaitham, Nahida does buff his personal damage by more than Larma does, but honestly not that much more, since Larma still provides him with 25% Res Shred, which will also buff Farina, something Nahida doesn't do. But the kicker is, Nahida's Elemental Mastery buff is only for the active character, while Larma's buffs are team-wide, so Nahida doesn't actually buff Kuki's Hyperblooms here, while Larma does, and by a lot. So this results in Larma indeed being an upgrade over Nahida here, so you should probably not pull Nahida for Alhaitham, unless you're going to have Larma occupied by another team, then in that case, yeah, you'll want to have Nahida with your Alhaitham. And for Tighnari, I'd much sooner recommend a double Electro team with Inefa, Ino, and either Yai or Auroron. This not only calcs higher than double Dendro, but it also has a shield, which can be much appreciated on a bow DPS like Tighnari. If your Inefa is occupied somewhere else, then go double Dendro Quickbloom with Larma is still better than Nahida. So the only real reason to pull Nahida for Tighnari is if both your Inefa and Larma are going to be occupied on other teams. And then moving on, we have pure Bloom teams, so that's going to be Nilou and Nefer. For Nilou, this is one case where you probably should pull Nahida. You want double Dendro here already, so Nahida doesn't really have to compete for a spot with Larma, you can use both. But that requires your second Hydro to be the Sustain, which ideally should be with Kokomi, and if not, then you would need C1 Larma. Otherwise, your second Hydro would likely be Seek Show for maximum Bloom procs, and Nahida wouldn't fit on the team at all, since at that point you need to use a Dendro Sustain like Baizu, Yao Yao, maybe even Kabe. But if you're a Nilou main, long term it's probably a good idea to try and get a team of Nilou, Larma, Nahida, and Kokomi, or Sync Show if you get Larma to C1. And for Nefer, she scales exceedingly well with Elemental Mastery since it increases both her multipliers and Luna Bloom damage bonus at the same time. Nahida has the biggest EM buff in the game, so using Nahida and Larma together as triple Dendro with Nefer is actually good. However, it's not good enough compared to other options to really be worth pulling Nahida specifically for. You'd be way better off spending those Primo Gems to get either Nefer or Larma to C1. So Nahida is really just a good option you can use with Nefer if you already have her, but absolutely not one you should go out of your way to pull, unless you otherwise wouldn't have enough teammates to make a complete Nefer team without taking away from your other teams. Then in that case, it could make sense to pull Nahida in that case. So that covers pulling for C0 Nahida. To recap, don't pull her for Electro DPS Hyperbloom teams such as Sino, Sethos, or Raiden, nor for Dendro Quickbloom DPS like Alhaitham or Tighnari, unless you know your Larma and or Inefer are going to be occupied elsewhere. Do pull her for Nilou, just keep in mind she won't fit on the team until you either get Kokomi or C1 Larma, and then only pull her for Nefer if your account doesn't have many units and you wouldn't be able to put together a good Nefer team without getting Nahida. As for pulling C2 Nahida, if you're planning to use her long-term with Tainari, Alhaitham, or one of the Electro DPS Hyperbloom teams, Nahida C2 is one of, if not the best pieces of vertical investment for them, but do keep in mind once we have Columbina, she could likely be a very strong off-field Hydro that makes Nahida even worse compared to Larmar and or Inefa due to Moon Sign. So, just like C0 Nahida, I'd really only advise getting her to C2 for these teams if you know your not-cry supports are going to be occupied elsewhere. For Nefer, do not pull C2 Nahida at all. You'd be better off investing in Nefer's own constellations. And for Nilu, Nahida C2 is really good vertical investment, but you should first prioritize ensuring you have the complete team of either Nilu, Larma, Nahida, Kokomi, or C1 Larma and Sync Show over Kokomi before going for C2 Nahida. Even then, with the free constellation we can get now, if you wanted to vertically invest, you could pull C1 Nilu and then get her C2 for free. That'll be cheaper investment than C2 Nahida, so I'd honestly suggest getting both C1 Nilu and C1 Llama before considering C2 Nahida. And yeah, that covers pretty much everything. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe, and also comment your thoughts down below. Also feel free to join my Discord where you can communicate with me and my community directly. Thanks, and goodbye.